When I look back on that night, I can still feel the pounding of my heart and the way my voice shook when I said the words, "Please stop." I never thought I would be in that position, half terrified, half desperate, and wholly unsure of what was about to happen. My name is Emily Carter, and I grew up in a small town in North Carolina where life seemed predictable, maybe even too predictable at times. I had a good job as an elementary school teacher, a comfortable home, and a fiancé, Daniel, who worked as an architect in the city. Everything in my life seemed perfectly lined up, like neat dominoes waiting to fall into place. But sometimes life doesn't just tip over one domino, it knocks over the entire table. It began with a simple phone call. I was sitting at my desk grading papers late one Friday afternoon when my phone buzzed. It was Daniel. He rarely called during work hours, but I answered quickly, expecting his warm voice. Instead, all I heard was silence at first, then muffled voices in the background, and finally Daniel's laughter. But it wasn't the kind of laugh he shared with me, not the laugh that bubbled up from his chest whenever I tripped over my own words or burned the toast. This laugh was different, lower, amused in a way that sent a shiver down my spine. "Hello, Daniel?" I asked. There was a pause before he spoke. Hey. I didn't mean to call you. Must have hit the button by accident. I'll call you later, okay?" And then the line went dead. At first, I told myself it was nothing. People pocket dial their loved ones all the time. But something about the voices in the background stuck in my head, especially the sound of a woman giggling. It was innocent enough, I knew, but the uneasy feeling stayed with me all weekend. The following Monday, Daniel told me he had to stay in the city for extra work. He wouldn't be back until the end of the week. Again, nothing unusual. His firm often pushed late deadlines. But by Wednesday, when I hadn't heard more than a few short texts from him, I couldn't fight the gnawing in my stomach anymore. That's when I decided to surprise him. I packed an overnight bag, drove into the city, and walked straight into his apartment building, a bouquet of sunflowers in my hands, his favorite. When I knocked on his door, it wasn't Daniel who opened it. It was a young woman with chestnut hair, wearing one of his shirts. For a moment, the world froze. She blinked at me, confused, and then Daniel appeared behind her. His face turned pale. "Emily, what are you doing here?" he stammered. I couldn't even form words. The flowers slipped from my hand and scattered across the floor. I turned and walked away before he could say another word. That was the end of us. Or, at least it should have been. For weeks, I tried to bury myself in work, telling myself I was stronger than the betrayal. But every night, I replayed the scene in my head, Daniel's guilty face, the girl's startled expression, the sound of his laugh on that call. It was during one of those sleepless nights that I heard the knock on my door. When I opened it, a man stood there. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes so dark they seemed to see right through me. He introduced himself as Luke Mason, a private investigator. "I think we need to talk," he said. At first, I thought it was some kind of scam. But when he told me Daniel wasn't who I thought he was, something inside me snapped to attention. Luke claimed Daniel's firm was under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. He believed Daniel was in deep and that I might be in danger simply by association. I laughed, thinking it was absurd. Daniel might have cheated, but he wasn't a criminal. Still, when Luke pulled out photos of Daniel meeting with shady-looking men late at night, my stomach dropped. From that moment on, my quiet life turned into a whirlwind. Luke urged me to stay away from Daniel completely. But Daniel wasn't letting go. He showed up at my school one afternoon, his face drawn and desperate. "Emily, please. You don't understand. I need your help." That's when I said it, the words that now echo in my mind. "Daniel, stop. Please stop." But he didn't. He grabbed my arm, begging me to listen, his voice frantic. That's when Luke appeared, pulling him back and warning him to leave. The days that followed were filled with tension. Luke stayed close, sometimes in his car outside my house, sometimes sitting at my kitchen table as we pieced together what Daniel might be hiding. He was quiet, reserved, but protective in a way that both comforted and unnerved me. I found myself looking forward to his presence, to the steady calm of his voice. One night, as a storm raged outside, Daniel showed up again. I was home alone, or so he thought. He pounded on the door, his voice muffled by the rain. "Emily, I just need to talk to you. Please open the door." My heart raced. I wanted to tell him to leave, to scream it loud enough for the neighbors to hear. But before I could, Luke stepped out of the shadows. "She said no, Daniel." That night ended with flashing police lights, Daniel being pulled away in handcuffs, and me trembling in Luke's arms. The story didn't end there, though. The weeks that followed were filled with court dates, statements, and difficult truths. Daniel had been living a double life for years, and I had been blind to it all. But through the chaos, Luke stayed by my side. He was the one who drove me to court, the one who checked on me late at night, the one who reminded me that I wasn't alone. Sometimes, when the silence of my house felt too heavy, I would hear his voice telling me to breathe, to trust, to move forward. And slowly I did. I begged Daniel to stop, but he never did. Instead, life stopped him. And in that ending, I found a new beginning. Not with betrayal, not with lies, but with someone who chose to stand beside me when everything else fell apart. That is my story. One of heartbreak, betrayal, suspense, and unexpected hope.